Uh,
Sorry, Graham.
that's okay. I won't start again. I'll just get rid of that off my screen. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet today virtually, most of us, I hope, in the land of the Dharawal Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We are trying this today, and we shall be doing another one in about 2 weeks' time with Dan Hunt from Mental Health Movement, and that's sponsored by Journey to Business and Personal Wealth. So you're welcome to come to that and to invite some friends and family also. But it's now my great pleasure to introduce Alison Earl, a resilience and mindset expert. She's Illawarra born and bred and an alumna of Wollongong University. For over 15 years, she has studied human behaviour and motivation. She is a repeat guest lecturer in behavioural economics at the Harvard School of Public Health, a positive psychology practitioner, and she has lived in Sydney, London, New York, and back here in the Illawarra. She's also worked with people and companies in over 20 countries who, like us, are experiencing tremendous change, uncertainty, and stress at the moment. Her latest book, Try-Powerment, highlights the 3 essential ingredients that separate those who thrive from those who may not. Through this training, Alison is going to share some valuable frameworks and tools to help everyone recognise resilience fatigue and learn how to beat it. Would you please give a very warm welcome to Alison Earl.
Oh, thank you, Graham. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you today. It's nice to see some familiar faces as well. If you came in just a little late, you missed the Taylor Swift dance off, but that's okay. You can catch up on that later. But also, bugger. So the chat function's going. So please do feel free to ask questions or make observations or comments or anything throughout. I always try and keep an eye on it. And also, as I pointed out earlier, there's like lots of reactions. So you might be like thumbs up or whatever else. I'm just keeping an eye on the waiting room. People are still filtering in, which is great. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, and I want to thank the TIC guys for inviting me to speak with you all after what has been a really interesting 18 months and still going, right? So the session today is on resilience fatigue. I'm sure many of you have experienced it or your teams are experiencing it. Where, you know, we at the beginning of the pandemic, it's sort of, okay, right, we've got to be resilient, we've got to hang in there, we've got to be optimistic and look for the opportunity in all of this. 18 months down the track and starting to feel like sometimes we're going backwards, not forwards, it starts to get pretty exhausting. And so really the conversation around resilience needs to change, and it needs to move on from where we were at the beginning of the pandemic. So today, my goal is to share some insights around this phenomena that I'm calling resilience fatigue, and also offer some practical tools and strategies that can help us move that conversation on and ensure that we're not being tone deaf to the current situation and where people are at. Excuse the empty shelves and boxes around me. As I said, we've all got our own COVID challenges, right? Mine is trying to move while 8 months pregnant and not allowed to have any help. So as some of you rightly pointed out, poor Jonas, my partner, so he's very sore right now having to do all of the lifting. So anyway, let's jump in. I shall just share with you my screen here. First check, are you all seeing the presentation mode? Yes, perfect. Sometimes I accidentally bring up the presenter mode, which is unhelpful. As I said, I've got my chat going here, so please do use that, ask questions or anything else, and I do my best to keep an eye on that through the session here. And I will also just keep an eye on anyone entering and make sure no one gets left out in the cold. Okay, so resilience fatigue. Look, I won't go into my background, as John did a fantastic intro to me. I'm going to take you, not John, Graham, sorry. I'm looking at John on my screen. Graham did a fantastic intro, so I'm taking you with me everywhere from now on, Graham. So just really quickly, I have, one of the things I did want to share with you is I've worked with a ton of companies over the course of my career, and particularly through this whole experience. So when COVID first got going, so when we had the oh no moment, I was actually in New York at the time and just made it back before the lockdown took place. And in those early days, I did a session with Facebook in Singapore, Elders Insurance and Dairy Australia all in the same day. So you could not get more different in terms of the types of organizations and the context of which these organizations are operating. Yet the human experience of what we've all gone through could not be more universal. And that experience of stress, change, and uncertainty is just so universal. And that's really where my focus is. Obviously, the sorts of business pressure and what it takes to be successful may differ, but what we experience as human beings is really, really similar. And really being able to help people take control of that experience, no matter what the external factors, is where the focus of my work has been. That's what led me to write my first book, Tripowerment, which is really a mindset book on creating important change. And the next book is coming soon, Responsibility, You Have More Control Than You Think. This will be available early into next year. So really, today is about moving the conversation on a little from anyone that's been in some of my previous sessions. A big focus for me is how do we move from surviving to thriving, irrespective of the external factors that we might be up against. How do we be in control of our own experience and recognize that sometimes we are just surviving or coping, but we don't want to stay there. We want to help be up in this thriving, leveraging zone where we do feel more in control, regardless of the external pressures that we have. To do that, after going through something like we are right now, as I said, we need to move the conversation on. We can't just keep talking about the same sorts of resilience tools, because let's be honest, it's not just been COVID. There was droughts, then there was floods, then there was bushfires, and then there was this little thing called COVID. So we have actually, as a country, experienced a lot of environmental external factors that have really drastically impacted our sense of well-being, our economic situation as well. Not to mention that on top of all of that, every market has become more intense and competition is intensifying, and uncertainty has become a really a lived experience that we've all had, not just in our external, in our environment, but also in business success. And here's the reality. Uncertainty is more stressful than a known negative. In fact, more people would rather know for certain that they were going to get an electric shock than have a 50-50 chance of getting zapped. So it turns out we have a stronger stress response when we're uncertain. So our cortisol levels spike, our pupils dilate, and it can drastically impact our behavior and our experience in the workplace. And so for that reason, it's not surprising that we see numbers like this. In 2020, 77% of Australian and New Zealand workers experience some kind of burnout. It's a big number. That's a big number. Now, burnout and stress has been growing for years. It's not just a COVID thing. I've been working with organisations on dealing with the stress of change and uncertainty well before COVID came along, because, as I said, markets are intensifying, the competition is more intense, and the challenges we're trying to solve are more complicated, and we have less resources. So it's all of these compounding factors, but there's no doubt the recent experience of COVID has compounded all of this. So what are we seeing over time? It's really interesting. So Salesforce ran a poll with their people to understand what percentage of them said they wanted to return back to work in the office. Now, toward the beginning of the pandemic, or let's call it the early days of the pandemic, you had about 23% of people saying, yeah, I want to come back to the office. A lot of people were still in that phase of, hey, this is all right. This home, this working from home business actually works out quite well. No problem. Um, Fast forward 20 to January 21, that number is very different, right? So 72% of people are now saying that they want to come back to the office, right? So we're seeing this, okay, I'm kind of over it now. It was great at first. It was kind of fun when we got going. And I know it could even be like optimistic and okay about it, but enough's enough. I actually do want to come back to the office. It's really hard doing all this stuff from home and having no separation and homeschooling and whatever else challenges might be going on. I have seen this in my work too. So as I said, I've been working with organizations, a whole range of organizations from the beginning of the pandemic. And we often do a poll in the sessions to see where people are at in terms of this surviving to thriving ladder. And it was kind of a bit of a normal distribution, right? So a lot of people in managing, but you had some people that were thriving, leveraging, some that were surviving, coping, and a bunch in between. As time has gone on, and particularly in this last lockdown, I think because there was a bit of we thought we were past it, and now all of a sudden we're not, we're seeing a slip, right? So less people in that thriving, leveraging, and more people in the bottom levels. And other organizations that I work with that track this stuff are seeing the same sort of thing. So over time, the longer we are in it, we will start to see these slips creep in. A great question here around what are the common symptoms of burnout and how can we identify it? I'll talk a little to that. So Rodney, just watch this space. Which is what leads me to resilience fatigue. So the idea of resilience fatigue is really that exhaustion that comes from trying to be positive all the time. I'm trying to be positive about this. I'm attempting to be strong and motivated in spite of the challenges. And I'm getting to the point where I'm actually just over it. This is too much. I can't be positive about this anymore. So it's that really strained attempt. In cultures like Australia, we have a bit of a tendency to feel the need to be good and be okay. And that's part of our culture. If someone's, how are you? I'm good, right? I'm okay. I'm good. I don't want to complain. And if you've got problems, that's a sign of weakness and you don't really want that. Part of the challenge is when you actually are feeling not great and you've got this pressure to be good, it actually amplifies all the negative feelings. So resilience fatigue becomes this, it's almost like this downward spiral. So we're seeing a lot more of that. What are the consequences of it? So what's the big deal if we see a bit of resilience fatigue? So we're all a bit over it. But obviously, the obvious things are we're less positive, we start to not feel as connected to our peers and our leadership and less engaged and productive. So we just start to see this downward slope, downward spiral. When it starts to get really bad, we start to feel resentment creep in. So I feel resentful that you're asking me to keep doing this work and you're asking me to keep being strong when actually I'm not. I'm over it. I've been being strong for 18 months. And it starts then when we start to talk about resilience and how we all need to show up and keep being resilient, it has the opposite effect. It has the pushback. So resentment very quickly turns into rebellion, when we're under that constant pressure and we're just over it. Right. And so we've seen that out in our societies where people are just like, enough's enough, and I'm protesting and whatever else. And I'm sure we've all had our own experiences in the workplace as well. So how do we overcome it? How do we overcome resilience fatigue? As I said to you, the same sorts of things we were talking about with resilience at the beginning of the pandemic, we can't keep having those same conversations because we're going to generate resentment. because at the end of the day, I have done that, right? Everyone feels they have done that and they are done. So how do we move it on? How do we stay engaged and avoid this trap of resilience fatigue? And there really are three key components. The first one is empathy, right? So it's essential that we build empathy and we demonstrate empathy. So we demonstrate empathy for individuals and the hardship that we've had, but we also need individuals to build empathy for people in leadership positions and government positions. And it goes both ways, because when we have that all-round empathy, we can start to break down the barriers, and it's less you versus me and my wants versus your wants. And I feel understood, so I can be open to the message. Next is energy. We are burnt out. So one of what are the common signs of burnout is typically exhaustion. So we are tired. People are tired. They're lacking. They just don't have it in them anymore. So we need energy more than anything. And so my biggest piece of advice, if you're focusing on resilience, is focus on energy. How do we help people rebuild energy, particularly in these sorts of situations where they're in lockdown? And then the final piece is ease. This has been too hard for too long. And so we cannot ask people to be perfect. We can't ask them to make sure that they're being ideal humans. We need to give really practical, easy ways to achieve the sorts of things that we want to achieve when it comes to resilience. And that's essential. So I want to give you a few tools in each of these buckets. That you can start to think about bringing into for yourself, but also bringing into your workplaces to combat this resilience fatigue and move the conversation on. So first up is empathy. As I said, empathy is essential mainly because we're getting these barriers built up and there's more defensiveness and resentment starting to creep in, particularly as people have done really well. People have done really well, and then there's another roadblock and there's another setback, and then the resentment creeps in. So empathy is absolutely essential. And firstly, we need to make sure we're acknowledging the individual hardship and even trauma. So I do a lot of work with companies that have been based in Melbourne as well, in Victoria. They've had one of the longest consecutive lockdowns in the world. Many actually are experiencing post-traumatic stress when a new lockdown is announced, and that hardship needs to be acknowledged. And also the fact at this point, everyone's missed something, right? Everyone's missed something. They haven't been able to celebrate with their family. Weddings have been cancelled. People haven't been able to grieve with their family if they've lost a loved one, or even really simple things. You haven't been able to just have your birthday or have friends over for a barbecue. There's really simple things that you should be able to do that you just can't right now, right? And we all need to kind of acknowledge that and just let people feel understood. But we also need to make sure we don't stay stuck in that place of poor me and this I've missed out on all this stuff. We need to bring it back to the common human experience and the fact that every person just like me has missed something, and make sure that we all feel like we're on the same page. And then finally, seek to understand others. And that one's really essential. So everything is worse when we feel alone in our suffering, right? So when we feel like we feel alone in what we're going through, every negative emotion is intensified, the stress is intensified, and the health consequences are also intensified. So it's really important that we bring people out of that place of this is just me. I'm really going through this hard time. Acknowledge it, but bring them out and make sure that we bring it back to common humanity. So there's this thing. This is a little survey called the Common Humanity Scale, and it's pretty self-explanatory when you start to read the responses. But when we ask people what best describes how you're feeling, where are you? And we can see where people are fitting based on their answers. So the top two are more around that feeling of isolation. I feel alone. I feel like other people are happier. I feel like they're doing better than I am. Versus the bottom two responses, which are more like, hey, this is a lot of people are going through something like this. This is part of the common human experience, right? So what the research has shown is that those that feel that sense of isolation are more likely to become depressed. They're more likely to rely on avoidant coping behaviors and give up, avoid stress. Whereas those that have a sense of common humanity are happier, more resilient, more satisfied. They're more open with their struggle and more likely to receive support as a result of that. They find more meaning and then less likely to experience burnout. So we want to make sure that we're giving people an opportunity to recognize that, yes, I've had a hard time. Yes, my pain and struggle has not been great, but it is part of this experience. And bring it back to that. It's also essential to make sure that we're helping them step into the shoes of others. It's really easy to assign blame and point fingers, and hindsight is a beautiful thing, right? But being able to step into the shoes of someone else who's potentially not getting everything right, and think any leader in this situation, we're not going to get everything right. The politicians are not going to get everything right. This is a once in 100-year event where we don't know all the answers and there's no precedent. So being able to step into the shoes of someone else, and this is a really fun activity that actually actors use when they're learning how to build empathy. So it's a very visceral reaction, but just imagine there's a glass of water sitting on your side table and you've woken up in the morning and you're really, really thirsty, but the glass of water's been sitting there for 5 days. Do you have a sip? Now, you've probably got a really strong visceral reaction, yes or no to this, right? So, and that's great. And so what we do is we say, right, write down your reasons. I love it. I love the honesty. Haley says yes. So what's that visceral reaction and why? Then what we do is say, let's imagine you have got the opposite point of view. So you said yes this time. I want you to come up with 3 reasons why you would say no instead, and vice versa. And all we're doing is helping people step into the shoes of someone else. And actors do this all the time, to step into the shoes of a different way of thinking. And we need to be able to do that so that we can develop empathy for the political leaders and leaders within our organization that are making tough decisions that we might not necessarily agree with everything, but we need to be on the same team, right? So that empathy has got to go both ways. And this was one of the most beautiful examples of empathy that I've seen being posted out there by someone on LinkedIn, talking about, what an amazing job, whether you agree with Dr. Chan or not, but her heart is in the right place. This is a once in 100-year sort of event. She's driven to help people. She's probably an introvert, and the idea of having to stand up and have cameras in your face every single day would be really intimidating. But we appreciate and celebrate her humanity and the fact that she's coming to this with her heart in the right place. If we can get people to that place, we can do better. I have to get faster, sorry, because I'm taking far too long. Get too excited in these sessions. Next up is energy. Energy could not be more important, because we must rebuild our energy. We run out of energy before anything else. We run out of energy before we run out of time. So how do we do that? We've got to regulate the negative emotions. Negative emotions zap energy. We need to stimulate more positive ones because they actually help boost us up. And we've really got to get good at mastering time and energy scarcity. So ants are these automatic negative thoughts. Like, according to the National Science Foundation, the average person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. 80% are negative and 95% are repetitive. So there's a lot of automatic negative thoughts going on. So we really need to counter this. Because negative emotions send us on a bit of a downward spiral. I'm just going to skip a little bit here, but negative emotions send us on a downward spiral. Positive emotions, on the other hand, send us on upward spirals, where we become more resourceful and creative and resilient. So it's important we regulate the negatives. It's not about ignoring them, but regulate them. And we've got to stimulate more of the positive emotions. So one of the tools that I often bring into this is what I call the glow method, which is all about helping stimulate positive emotions on every day. So whether it's something simple like gratitude, laughter, Laughing it fills your body with endorphins. It has pain relieving capabilities. Even if you fake laugh, you get all the benefits of laughing. It's incredible. Optimism, being able to have more of an optimistic outlook. Optimism and pessimism is not a personality type. It's an explanatory style that can be learned, right? So if we can learn that more optimistic explanatory style, we'll realize that this is not the end of the world forever, always, but actually this is a tough time right now and that we will get through it, right? So that's the shift. And then wonder. Wonder is that awe. You know, I'm awestruck. I feel a sense of enchantment. The Olympics for me was a fantastic break from all of the COVID talk. And it actually hit a lot of these positive emotions for me, whether it was gratitude or laughter or optimism or wonder at seeing people achieve their dreams. And one of my favorite moments I just want to share with you all right now is when Ariana Titmus won the gold medal.
Sort of like Doc Brown. I mean, he is going crazy. Oh my goodness.
It's impossible for me not to watch this and not laugh, but also feel the joy and the mutual love between the coach and the player. So it's really fantastic. But anything that gives you a chance to laugh and experience joy and gratitude is just really valuable right now. Look, the Harvard Business Review actually published this article years ago, that we should be trying to manage our energy, not our time. And that's because time is a limited resource. No matter what you do, it runs out. We have a set amount of time, but energy is something we can build and we can re-energize through the day. We can constantly top it up and think about the different types of energy, whether it's physical or emotional, mental, spiritual energy. We all have the capacity to keep building more energy. So the final area is ease. So we gotta keep it simple, guys. Be real, not ideal. Be practical, not theoretical. And focus on systems, not the self. As Graham mentioned, I've been guest lecturing in behavioral economics for quite some time now with the Harvard School of Public Health. And they tell me there are just 5 things that you need to do to live a long, happy life and avoid 90% of chronic illness. Do you want to know what they are? Yeah? Eat a healthy diet, exercise regularly, drink in moderation, don't smoke, and get a good night's sleep. Gee, thanks, Harvard. We didn't exactly need you for that, did we? It's simple. Look, but the simple things are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. As I said, I guest lecture in behavioral economics for people in their public health masters. So they're mostly doctors that are going on and care about the health and well-being of the world. Only 10% of these guys actually fulfill all of this criteria. So it's probably less for the rest of us, right? So we've got to stop being perfect. At the end of the day, we're not. We're flawed. And even though something seems simple, it's actually very challenging to do something like this. So I've got a new framework for you that's going to make it a lot easier. And you're going to take a 2-minute state shifter. You're going to do it 5 times a day to give you 10 minutes a day to transform your mind and your body. Okay, so it's just 2 minutes, 5 times. It's things like, yes, if you go for a walk in greenery, that greenery gives you so many beautiful benefits. So it reduces your stress response and anxiety and depression. It improves your cardiovascular response to stress. Guess what else does that? Looking at a picture of greenery, right? So just looking at the picture will actually give you all the same benefits as the real thing. Same thing if you're an ocean person, look at the ocean. It does exactly the same thing. Breathe, better still breathe while you do it. Honestly, I love, there's so much meditation research and all of that stuff. And if you're doing that, fab. If you're not, don't stress, you're breathing anyway. So just take a little bit of time to be a bit deliberate about it. Just do 10 breaths where you're in for 4, out for 6. The key is to extend that exhale compared to the inhale. And what that will do, it'll move you from the sympathetic nervous system, characterized by that fight, flight, drive, into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relax and receive, rest and digest. So you're literally changing how your body is functioning simply by extending your outward breath. Do 10 of them while looking at a picture of greenery, even better. Power posing. Who knew that how you stand? So whether you've got Superman, Wonder Woman, or victory pose, Simply holding that for 2 minutes will change your body's physiology, right? So you'll get more testosterone, less cortisol, making you less stress reactive if you hold a powerful pose compared to low power poses where I'm like covering my vital my vital organs, and I'm cowering a little. I have the exact opposite: high cortisol, low testosterone. So power posing. As I said, smiling and laughing, these things could not be better for you. Smiling lowers your heart rate and stress levels. It releases endorphins that go up and down our spinal cord, releasing feel-good hormones through your whole body. And to be honest, the research has shown you can fake smile and get all the same benefits. You don't even have to mean it. So just, you know, what they do in the research is they get people to hold a pen in between their mouths. So it's like fake smile. Even when they're doing stressful tasks, they get all these benefits. So smile. On average, kids smile 400 times a day. Only 1/3 of adults smile more than 20 times per day. So we just need to smile more. Better still, laughing is like smiling on steroids. Music is an incredible state shifter. You saw I play music when we start a session. It's very deliberate. I want to bring energy. We want to up our energy, right? If we listen to music we enjoy, it releases dopamine and it activates our brain. Relaxing music will release melatonin, help us get ready for sleep. Heavy metal activates the amygdala and will release adrenaline. So maybe not so much of that right now. So just pick a few of these things. They're pretty simple. I'm not saying do 30 minutes of meditation and 30 minutes of exercise and get a full sleep. Just pick a couple of these things. Trust your system, not yourself. So you want to have key moments that you're building them into your day. So the best way to do this is an implementation intention. When this happens, then I will. Right? So when I wake up, then I will. When I end a Zoom meeting, then I will, right? And just build a few of these into your day. Better still, stack it onto an existing good behavior. So when current behavior, then I will. Classic is when I brush my teeth, then I will floss, right? So we want to stack it onto something already good. If you do an implementation intention, you increase your chances of doing the behavior by over 80%. So it's about trusting our system. So come up with 5 of these implementation intentions across your day, insert them into different moments. It might be after a stressful phone call, a Zoom meeting, whatever. And that's 10 minutes a day that will transform the way you feel. So as a reminder, we have the 3 areas: the empathy, energy, and ease. And this is really the way the resilience conversation needs to move on. Hopefully you've got a few tools that you can start using yourself and start to share with your team. If you want more, my gift to you today is the 19 days of resilience. So please feel free to download this QR. If you go to the QR code, it will give you a little tip every single day, a little resilience booster similar to the ones I just gave you today around smiling or listening to music, but really things that can be done quite simply. So it's been my pleasure to be here with you today. Please don't hesitate to get in touch if you've got questions. I'm sorry I'm speaking so fast at the end. It's because I went over. I'm naughty. I went over time, but I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I'm seeing notes about flat tires and Batman t-shirts from Graham. I do love Graham's. That's great. Excellent. Oh, good. Tanya endorses power posing as well. Thanks, Tanya. Beautiful. Well, guys, just remember, be good to yourselves, be kind to yourselves during this time. Graham's got his Thor hammer. Fabulous. Yeah. So just remember to be kind to yourself. To be honest, it is a tough time, and we've all got to just be a little bit kind, keep it easy, focus on energy, and remember to try and step into the shoes of other people as well as what you're going through. If we can do that, we'll have a better time of it.
Thank you very much, Alison.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, no problem.
And I should have done this before the meeting, but if I could get everyone to lean into your screen a little bit closer. That's it, lean. Just taking your temperature. Remember when we used to do that? Those years ago? Anyway, thank you, Alison, and thank you for everyone who turned up today. It is a chance to connect again. It's a chance to see each other's faces, hopefully to smile, maybe to glow a little bit. Thank you, Alison. And you've put me somewhat at ease. Some of those thoughts, as you were talking about them, I realised that I go to dark places as well. And, especially on weekends when you can't do much, you just want to sleep or lie around. But, getting some decent clothes on and getting out and doing things, very helpful. We're looking forward to a chance to get back together again, like that 72%. We want to get back in a room with everyone. And so at the moment, we're looking at our September and October options fairly closely. I've fingers crossed for October. I'm sort of aiming for that at the moment. But we've got to wait and see. On the 30th of August, we do have another presentation, and that will be by Dan Hunt, sponsored by Journey to Business and Personal Wealth, and that will be being a better supporter. So please feel free to come and join us for that. I'll hand it over to our Executive Officer, Sharon. Do you have any other announcements, Sharon?
No, that's it. The invitations for the next one will go out in the next few days. These couple of webinars are offered to our members as an addition to their membership offering. And because we couldn't present the black tie dinner during August, so I hope you enjoy the next one as much as I've enjoyed Alison as well. Thank you, Alison.
Welcome. No problem.
Graham,
Yes, John.
I think you failed to mention who sponsored today's session.
No, that's okay.
Everyone, Graham sponsored today's session. So he's being very modest. He's being very modest.
Yep.
Well, thank you for having me, Graham.
You're welcome. And you're worthy. Very worthy.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, if that being all, please, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day as best you can. And hopefully we'll see you back here again in a fortnight's time. Until then, connect well.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so
Bye.
much.